dear Reverend Uki. She is so sweet, such a delightful light, and has been holding beautiful angel circles and meditations in her home for years. Met her up at Harmony Grove, and we just, it was just such a gift to be there, to talk with her and share with her, and all the miracles that we've seen. It's just, she's just a delight, and really always looking forward to seeing Reverend Uki. She was ordained at Harmony Grove and has been serving the Grove as a minister for over 25 years. Reverend Uki McIsaac is also an intuitive counselor and spiritual psychic. Through her gift of clairvoyance, she empowers her clients to integrate their spiritual purpose and live a fuller, more meaningful life. Having overcome life-threatening illnesses more than once, her mission is to teach, to heal, and to inspire others. By connecting to the power of the spirit within. Past life regression and soul retrieval are other specialties which she serves her clients, and with her beloved husband Gary, resides in San Diego's North County, and together they offer popular monthly meditation and angel message circles. In her own words, "My life is my ministry, and nothing that has ever happened to me was by mistake. I can see the hand of God in the many twists and turns that my life has taken, and I am so blessed to walk the path of service and passion as I do the work I love." Please help me welcome Reverend Uki McIsaac.
Beautiful introduction. Thank you so much. Good morning. Good morning. Hi. All right. I have a question for you. What does death, taxes, and public speaking have in common? Make people nervous. They're our biggest fears, aren't they? And you know what? Tax day for most of us is over unless you chose the extension. Public speaking is happening right here, right now, so it can't be that horrible. That leaves death. Oh my God, I just saw your aura snapping down. Oh my God, she's going to talk about death on this beautiful spring day. But don't you worry, we will talk about it, but more we will talk about what comes after. All right, so let's start with some of the fears we have around the topic of death. First of all, it's really almost like a taboo in our society to talk about that, isn't it? You know, we use all kinds of euphemisms, has passed over, gone to the Lord. It's just like the word itself is just like not being used. And obviously, we have some very real fears. So some of these fears can be simply of the unknown. There may be a fear of pain and suffering, which is quite real. Maybe some of us have seen parents, be on life support in the hospital, and we didn't wish that for them, and we don't wish it for ourselves. There is also sometimes the notion of regret and maybe unfulfilled dreams. And for some people who have not confronted that at all, they may be afraid of non-existence and to be judged and punished by some version of their God that they have maybe not reflected too much about. And of course, if a loved one dies, we grieve, and we go through the phases of grief that we have heard a lot about. Maybe some of you are familiar with the work of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. She wrote a book about death and dying, and she said there are certain stages we go through. There is denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and finally acceptance. And it may not even happen in that sequence. So all of this is very real. We are humans after all. And emotions are part of who we are and how God, great source, made us. But let's look for a moment at what the world religions have told us of what awaits us beyond that leaving of the physical body. So in Christianity, traditional Christianity, there is a heaven and there's a hell. If you lived a good life, you go to heaven. If you lived a sinful life, you go to hell. Plain and simple. Now, did you know, though, that even in the early versions of the Bible, the notion of reincarnation was firmly anchored in it? It wasn't until council in the year, I think 500 something AD, that they said, oh, let's kick out the notion of reincarnation. And you know what? Hate to say that, but people who are fearful can be controlled better, right? So that's one way of, I don't know what their thought was. But anyway, you know, what many people don't know that. And they, you know, adhere to those very strict heaven and hell principles. Buddhism, on the other hand, the goal, and this is of course in a nutshell, I can't claim to go into detail on that, but Buddhism claims that our attachments are the root of our suffering and that we're on the karmic wheel. Yes, Buddhism has the notion of karma very firmly, but the ultimate goal is liberation from suffering and enlightenment, merging with Source. All right? How about Hinduism? In Hinduism, the notion of karma is very strongly alive. And it is believed that the soul goes through lifetime after lifetime in which the soul has an opportunity to learn and grow. And what's the highest learning there is? The learning about love. So as we evolve, according to Hinduism, you know, the soul can eventually also merge again with the divine. There are cycles, but ultimately samsara is the goal. When we look at, for example, shamanism and other approaches, they speak more of multiple dimensions awaiting us on the other side. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? And they also say that there are ancestors and helpers for us on the other side. That's comforting, and that aligns probably a bit more with what we as spiritualists believe. Do you realize what a blessing it is to be a spiritualist? Why? Because we know about the survival of consciousness. We know that death is not an end, not a finality. It is simply a transition into a different state of being. How deeply comforting is that knowledge, isn't it? And how do we know? Where do we derive that knowledge from? Well, we have a tremendous gift, and that's the gift of mediumship. So through mediums, we know we can connect with loved ones on the other side. And it doesn't necessarily require a medium, because with training, with trust, with developing that, we can, each one of us can talk to our loved ones and receive messages from them. So mediumship can provide healing, validation. Sometimes the loved ones from the other side, they may want to make amends, and so tremendous healing can happen. We can achieve closure when something in this lifetime was maybe unfinished between our loved ones and us. And we have support. Look at this church. You have community support here to help you through whatever you're going through, and to always keep that higher perspective in mind. So we also know that we have guides and angels with us. That that makes the whole transition, or the notion of transition, so much more acceptable, right? And we establish that loving connection with our guides and angels while we're in body. And so we know they will be with us on this journey. Now, there's another big notion, and that's the one of reincarnation. I mentioned it briefly before. So, as spiritualists, we know that reincarnation is a fact for us. Would you agree? Mm-hmm. All right. So, we know that the soul, in its many manifestations in a human body, always evolves. There's no sliding back. There's always evolution. And, the goal of, what is the goal of that evolution? Maybe one day we'll be serving those on this side as spiritual guides. And maybe we will merge with Source. So there's a lot we don't know, but we have faith. We can trust in the divine that we are always provided for. So what do we know about the afterlife? Another, I wouldn't say tool, but events that help us understand better is near-death experience. And near-death experience, short NDE, is something that has been scientifically proven and documented. So you don't even have to be a believer to just read the plain facts of it. And what's really amazing is when you hear children, kids, talk about their experiences on the other side. And kids wouldn't come up with things like that. There is a knowingness. And I want to briefly tell you a beautiful story, when I can find it here. So, in a quiet village nestled among rolling hills, there lived a young boy named Arjun. From the moment he could speak, Arjun would share remarkable stories with his family, tales of places he had never visited and people he had never met. One day, as Arjun played in the garden with his siblings, he pointed to a distant mountain peak and exclaimed, "That's where I used to live in my other life." His parents exchanged puzzled glances, unsure of how to respond to their son's unusual statement. But as Arjun continued to recount memories of a life that seemed to belong to another time and place, they couldn't help but be intrigued. According to Arjun, he had been a shepherd in a remote mountain village in a past life. He described the rugged terrain, the sound of sheep bleating in the valleys, and the warmth of the sun on his face as he tended to his flock. At first, his parents dismissed his stories as the wild imagination of a child. But as Arjun grew older, his memories became more detailed and vivid, leaving them baffled and curious. Determined to unravel the mystery of their son's past life memories, Arjun's parents decided to visit the mountain village he had described. As they journeyed through the winding path and steep cliffs, they were amazed to find that everything Arjun had described matched the landscape before them. Upon reaching the village, they were greeted by an elderly shepherd who shared stories of a young boy who had tended to his flock decades ago. The details he recounted mirrored Arjun's memories with uncanny accuracy, leaving no doubt in their minds that their son was indeed recalling a past life. Arjun's story spread throughout the village, captivating the hearts and minds of those who heard it. He became known as the boy who remembered his past life, a living testament to the mysteries of the human soul and the timeless journey of consciousness. And though Arjun's memories of his past life eventually faded as he grew older, the lessons he learned and the connections he forged remained etched in his heart. A reminder that the bonds of love and experience transcend the boundaries of time time and space. So, isn't it a beautiful story?
That's a beautiful story.
And there's hundreds, thousands more. If you do some research, you will find that. And I myself had a near-death experience. I talk about that sometimes. I was in a coma for 3 weeks after a pneumonia that had gone systemic. I was on life support, and they really didn't think I would make it. And during those 3 weeks in the coma, I had a cosmic journey that to this day, it's now 30 years ago. And I'm still here, woo-hoo! And, you know, I remember all the details of it. And while it wasn't all angels and hallelujah, as sometimes we're made to believe, because there's 1,000 different journeys. And mine was a so-called distressing near-death experience, and I think it had to do with the toxicity in my body from the infection and so on. But anyway, to make it short, at the end, there was a moment when I was aware of my soul's choice. And as much as I wanted to be free of that pain and suffering, which was quite real, you know, well, in that moment, a light came in, and I understood that my soul, my higher self, my God self, had decided it wasn't time to go yet. And so I was in a flush of light. I was transported back into earth and into my body. And you know, I think I sort of made a deal afterwards when I was awake again. I made a deal with God. Okay, you get me through all of this and I'll serve you. And to the best of my abilities, I've kept my part of the deal. And obviously God has too. So what this has left me with is really, I'm no longer afraid of death. Because I know that there's a higher aspect that's in charge. And it's not some judgmental God that says, oh, you were a good or not so good person, you go this way or that way. Not in my beliefs. You know, we're done when we're done, when our job on earth in this lifetime is done. And then we move on to another beautiful place on the other side. And you know, I've done the work of mediumship and counseling for over 30 years now, and it's interesting. I have a sense that what the soul goes through upon passing, upon leaving this physical vessel, and there's many accounts, you know, with Daniel Brinkley and so many people have written about that. So there is that tunnel of light where we are welcomed and greeted by our loved ones. And then there's a giant party on the other side where everybody celebrates our coming home. All right? Trust that, believe it. And then there is a time of review, life review. And by the way, that life review can also happen sometimes in unexpected moments. A couple of days ago, I had a client who said that they were in the ocean in a very dangerous situation, trying to grab to the boat, and in a moment, his life flashed by him. In split seconds, his whole life flashed by him. Now, that was not the life review on the other side, but we have lots of testimonials about that event and out-of-body experiences and things like that. So the life review, if I understand it, as I understand it, means that we're going to look back over our lifetime and we see and feel the results of our actions. So if we were kind and thoughtful and helpful, we get to feel good. If, of course, we are human, we make mistakes. Sometimes we are thoughtless or even cruel. You know, it's part of being human. then we get to experience what effect that had on others. So in a way, it's a cleansing, a clearing of the soul. And then, I believe we get to be in our personal heaven. So for some it may be angels on harp and hallelujah, but I've seen more often in contact to the other side how people get to create like their personal heaven. And it's funny because, you know, if a guy was really into motorcycles and cars, guess what his heaven looks like? Motorcycle and cars, all right? I know this sounds almost trivial, but forgive me, that's really what I've experienced a lot. And so people get to be with the ones they love and do what they enjoyed or maybe didn't have a chance to do in this lifetime. So I'm also a hypnotherapist. I do past life regression, but the very first regression I experienced was interesting. It was with my teacher, Joe Gustin, who's been on the spirit side for many years. Maybe some of him might know him. And so in this lifetime that he took me back to, I was a blind man in Greece, and I had great skill in carving musical instruments. And I just did it all by feeling. And I think it was lyra or something like a small musical Greek instrument. And when then Joe took me to the other side, guess what? I still identified with that man, but now I could see and I could play the instruments that I had created. So what joy, what fulfillment can await us, yes? So, and there is really even scientific proof of the continuation and the survival of consciousness. And that, you know, even to non-believers, you can check out, there is really sufficient research on that. So how does all of that help us with who we are today? Maybe we need no longer run away from death. You know, it doesn't matter what age we are. Maybe we can just face it. You know, the Romans, they had a saying, memento mori. And they put that as a plaque in their houses and places of gathering. It means remember death, memento mori. And it was not a morbid thing or instilling fear. It was just because they had another saying, carpe diem, seize the day, right? So those two go hand in hand, don't they? Because when we live life fully, with awareness, with kindness, with compassion, in service, then we live a good life. And seize the day doesn't mean, I mean, to some people it may mean, oh, accumulate as much wealth as you can and get status and power and all of that. But you know what? There's another saying, in shrouds there are no pockets. In other words, what we take with us is not the fame, the fortune, the material gains. It's the love we shared, the love we experienced. That is the highest gift of all. So when we can face it and acknowledge our humanity, of which the mortality of the physical vessel is an inevitable part, inevitable. But it need not make us fearful or depressed or whatnot, because it can empower us to live authentically, yes? Whatever that means to you. It means to me to be in alignment with my values as best I can. It means to be of service. And God has given us gifts that will always, always empower us to be of service, one way or the other. gratitude and appreciation. Every day in the morning before I get out of bed, I say, thank you, God. I thank you for this another day, another beautiful spring day. Even for little things, I say thank you. Thank you for my cup of coffee, my warm bed, the purring cat that always loves to jump on my bed, especially when she hears the om of my meditation app. There she comes and pops on the bed. We can also release control, right? Because we cling sometimes so tight to that sense that we want to control our lives and the world. And good luck. It hasn't worked for me. It's hard enough to control ourselves. That's a big job by itself. We can connect to the eternal essence of our soul. We can release and the identification with ego. You know, ego loves to run the show, doesn't it? And I call it the monkey mind. Yeah. You know, the monkey mind always has some ideas, and the monkey mind loves to control and gets very frustrated and angry when it notices that it can't control. So when we understand the truth of who we really are, it is an incredible liberation. It is a saying yes to life. See, it's not a contradiction at all. And of course, there's always the mystery, and we need to respect the mystery. We don't know everything, we just get glimpses. And we can trust and we can work on building our faith up so strongly that we have more certainty than questions. So I know I've been a bit serious, but I want to tell you a couple of jokes because, hey, it can't be that serious, right? So, what? Well, you want to hear jokes, yes? Okay. So, a man was listening to his little boy say his prayers at night. God bless Mommy and Daddy and Grandma. Goodbye, Grandma. Next day, Grandma dies. A week later, the son is praying. God bless Mommy and Daddy and Grandpa. Goodbye, Grandpa. Next day, Grandpa dies. A week later, the son is praying. God bless Mommy and Daddy. Goodbye, Daddy. The man freaks out, but decides to beat death. He drives to work stressed about every car on the road. He spends the day obsessed with his heart rate and blood pressure, can't concentrate, gets nothing done, and drives home fearing an imminent crash. He finally gets home safely. He hugs his wife and tells her that he had the worst day. She said, "You think you had a bad day? The letter carrier dropped dead on our front porch." Okay. She said it was my last one. I've got a couple of one-liners that I just have to share with you. No, I'm not finding it. Okay, now this is cute too. Mahatma Gandhi, as you know, walked barefoot most of the time, which produced an impressive set of calluses on his feet. He also ate very little, which made him rather frail, and with his odd diet, he suffered from bad breath. That made him a super calloused, fragile mystic hexed by halitosis. What do angels say to each other when they greet themselves each other in heaven? Hello, hello. Hello. Okay, so, and I have so many more, and quotes, and this and that, but I want to close with the famous words of Ram Dass. Be here now. Thank you.